What is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of Father Dynasty. I'm your fatherly host, Chu, here in the manhole, here to talk a little fatherhood, fantasy football, and everything in between. And I've got a very special guest with me today. One thing you should know about him, he likes long walks on the beach, as long as it's on Topsail Island. And in some circles, he is known as Tommy Dangerous, but I know him as my brother-in-law and as Finn's godfather. Tommy D, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. My computer cut out, so I only cut half the intro, but I'm just elated and honored to be on this glorious podcast and excited to, understand more Father Dynasty.
Absolutely. And the best icebreaker of all is a keep, trade, cut. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So I have to choose my favorite. I'm going to keep.
Oh, dear.
I will trade.
This is kind of wild.
The cut is easy, and it's the last one.
Keep, trade, cut, for those in the fantasy football community, everybody knows it as a trade tool or a ranking tool for players. You either love it or you hate it. But for the practicality of this podcast, it is keep first, trade second, cut third, in a way of every guest getting their own unique 3 topics and a bonus one. And Tommy, are you ready for your first one?
Hit me with it.
Let's do it. So the first one here is skin in the game. And I won't say the real team name because you can't say that anymore. So here I've got 3 players from this esteemed team. And I know you are quite a historian of this Washington football team. So rank these players. We've got Sammy Baugh, Darrell Green, and John Riggins.
Oh my goodness.
So in your heart of hearts, how do you feel about these guys?
You picked the best player at each position. I unfortunately am going to have to cut one of these gentlemen, and it's going to be John Riggins. I never thought I'd say that in my life. I know I'm supposed to go in a certain order, but sometimes us D'Angelo go against the grain. So with that being said, I might go inverse and explain it. That way the thought process, hopefully the audience, at least the fans of this franchise, understand where I'm coming from. Mm. John Riggins is the only player of those 3 not to play their entire career with the franchise. He began a New York Jet. He had a larger-than-life personality. He had a couple larger-than-life's hairdo. He went to the beat of his own drum. He could run through you. He could run around you. He's the reason why they have their first Super Bowl against the Dolphins. He could have done it all. So, unfortunately, I'm cutting him for the only reason that he did not have his entire career with Washington. Had it been maybe any other choice of 3 players, he's making the team. Mm. When it comes to value, that's a relative term. Both of the next 2 players, I believe Sammy Baugh played somewhere close to 15 years, give or take a few. Darrell Green played 20 years, and he was probably the fastest man in the entire NFL for at least 15 of them. He chased down Tony Dorsett. No one chases down Tony Dorsett. He chased down, I'm blanking on the running back's name, Eric Dickerson. No one chases down Eric Dickerson. He returned punts. He's the reason why we made it to the Super Bowl when we beat Chicago in the 87 playoff run. He tore his rib, part of the play. He was electric. However, he played a game that cannot be compared to what Sammy Baugh did. And I will have to trade him because of his value. Not only will you get Darrell Green, but he used to play with a Tootsie Roll literally in his sock. You can Google that, YouTube that. He's inspiration, but you get more trade value because you get Darrell Green and the Tootsie Roll.
Nice.
So Yeah, but Sammy Baugh, this is my fandom coming out in me. One year, he led the league in passing, he led the league in punt yards and interceptions. Um, and here's the thing, he only punted on third downs. So, a lot to be said for that person. He came out of TCU. He was marketed as this cowboy because the owner at the time thought he could get some publicity going there. He just seems, from everything you read, everything you've seen from the historical perspective, like he was part of the greatest generation and, part of hard-nosed football. He wore 33, the number 33 as a quarterback. Uh, he brought Washington one, if not two, championships. And after he left, Washington went on a losing streak. So without Sammy Baugh, I don't know if Washington ever has relevance prior to Joe Gibbs if it's not for Sammy Baugh.
I love the thought process with all of those because I think with these three players, their impact on the organization as a whole, you could go anyway. I think Sammy Baugh is a fair number one, but the other two I think is a toss up. And it was funny. It was funny thinking about Sammy Baugh being quarterback, safety, punter, and I know that's back in a time when like that wouldn't happen now. I mean, at this point, they're like, do we have a place kicker and a punter do the same job? Or like that's the level of like duality that a lot of people have nowadays. Or is Debo a wide receiver and running back? But to be able to do that and do all of them on every phase so well, unbelievable. So I feel like in football, it's like you're so restricted to your one position, but he was able to have that big of an impact on a game in the NFL, which is unheard of.
With a leather helmet.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no roughing the passer in his day.
That's right. And it's funny that you mentioned about Darryl Green being fast. I did remember it was his 50th birthday. He ran a 4.43. I was like, man, if this dad is 50 years old running a 4.43, just imagine what that was in his prime in any of the 20 years that he played football, which again is also pretty insane.
Yep.
But
and all three of those players, they didn't talk. The way they performed did all the talking that was needed.
mm-hmm.
Dion easily, Darryl Green could have easily, had the same facade that Dion has going prime time. But there's something special about the humility that each of the three of them displayed. Was John Riggins a character off the field? Of course. But he didn't make it purely about himself. None of the three of those gentlemen did. It was team first. It was, Sammy Baugh had a quote. I forget how I'm going to paraphrase here. But he said, once I step on the field, I need to believe that I'm the best athlete and I need to show it. We can be friends tomorrow, but this is football. Friends don't matter as much on the field unless they're your teammate. So
love that mentality.
Yeah.
So jumping over to the second one, and this is one that I think is also going to be near and dear to your heart in a different way. So 'Tis the Season. Tommy, I know you're a huge fan of Christmas music, and I'm going to give you three here. One of these songs is just because it's Christmas and I have to include it. It may be a cut for you, but I have to include it. So we've got All I Want for Christmas Is You, White Christmas, the Bing Crosby version.
Good, okay.
And Jingle Bell Rock, the Bobby Helms version.
Okay.
So what do we got?
Okay. I'm going to follow the rules this time. Keeping Bing Crosby. Some say I'm an old soul. Many people forget the song White Christmas came from the movie. It's a slow movie, but it's so sincere, genuine, has some of the best ensemble of cast that you could ever imagine, with two dancers and two artists as in singers, Rosemary Clooney being one of them. I'm blanking on the two other dancers, but they were top echelon. And the song's just nostalgic. Wherever you are, You're thinking about family. It reminds me of my grandparents. It reminds me of a nice Italian dinner,
Mm.
night of Christmas, and it's just nostalgic because you are considering, oh, when I was a kid, I always wanted that Christmas with snow, and you're thinking about getting the day of school off, and it's just no matter where I am, that's a good song to play.
Yep.
So yeah, when it comes to trade, so this is technically a number two in my personal preference. It would likely be so you mentioned Jingle Bell Rock, right?
Mm.
So I would put that one as number two for me. However, I think more trade value would be All I Want for Christmas Is You. When it comes to Jingle Bell Rock, it's perfectly modern. It bridges the gap amongst generations, and it's uplifting, but it's familiar, just familiar enough, and it doesn't get overplayed. I'm cutting All I Want for Christmas Is You because it's overplayed. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're getting the scissors. It's great artist. The lyrics are great, but it's one of those things where the radio waves are just too saturated, and I could probably recite it frontwards and backwards, and you don't want to hear me do that, but I could.
No, it's I know when it comes to Christmas music, and especially with those are excuse me, kind of the originals of each of those. So it's tough, year over year to kind of think like, all right, it almost feels like it feels like sooner and sooner you're going to hear these songs. It almost feels like, is it Memorial Day and I'm hearing Christmas music already?
Yeah.
And it's likely going to be all these same types of songs, but there's some bit of nostalgia, and for a lot of these, they hold up not just for the Christmas season, but just when you hear them, yeah, you connect it with a positive thing and not just come on, is this thing on again?
Yeah.
No offense, Mariah Carey, because I do think that.
Right.
Yeah, but
And also, if you place the movies and the songs, you need to remember Lindsay Lohan did very well in her solo for Jingle Bell Rock as part of Mean Girls.
yeah,
So that was very well done, and I just great selections of all these so far. Keep Trade Cut. You outdo yourself every time.
I did actually almost say, instead of Bobby Helms' version, how about if I make it the Mean Girls version? Which they're not singing it, but they're dancing to it. So yeah, very classic.
Two for you,
But-
Glenn Coco. You
That's
go,
right.
Glenn Coco.
Oh my God, Danny DeVito, I love your work. Oh, what a classic movie. So, topic number 3, and I think it's on your shirt. So this is The Godfather, and that is a title you hold. So this would be 3 things to do with Finn.
Okay.
So I've got Finn in the back seat. So of course you got Finn in the back seat of your truck, and you're going around. You could be going to Chick-fil-A, you could be going to the park, wherever you're going. Could be reading books, and as we both know, it probably is going to be like 8 at a time. And the third one, which is one that you've talked about maybe once he's public school and everything, is playing hooky, having just a fun day. So how would you rank these?
Again, I'm going to make sure I follow the rules here. This day will one day be referred to as Godson Day. When I'm informed that Finn is allowed to, if it's a weekday during the school year, and for all I know, he's sick, maybe Marley or yourself will allow me to surprise him. Whenever he wakes up, we'll be sure to maybe go to the toy store. We'll get his favorite food. Maybe there's a movie that he wants to see. Maybe he just really wants to go to one of the amusement parks. That's God Sunday. There's a similar concept that I think they may have, learned from me. A movie called Yes Day. So, that's the essence of it. As long as there's no law breaking, as long as he's having fun, those are 2 goals right there. Check. And with someone like Finn, there's no way to have a bad day with that kid.
No kidding.
So when it comes to trade, okay, let's see. I'm gonna go with reading a book because I'm sure you know this. It's Finn's world. We are just living in it.
Mm-hmm.
However, whenever you're reading with him and going over the different plot lines, he's so attentive and
Mm.
eager to either listen to you or give you commentary about what he sees on the page, or he may even add his own little excerpt to about how daddy reads it or how mommy reads it.
Yeah.
So that's always a joy. And what's fun is seeing him pick whenever we say, "Well, pick your favorite," and well, they're all my favorite, and it was just awesome. Last time we were reading, whenever we were done with the books, he said, "I want you to tell me a story." So I said, "Well, you're gonna have to tell it with me." So we're going back and forth, and we're adding lines to the story. And he came up with this idea that there was gonna be a party, and we were gonna be serving food, and then there was gonna be a drink, and it was gonna include a taco, and it just was, making him laugh so much. And there's nothing better than hearing that kid's joy and laughter.
Mm.
You like I said, there's if you want to have a good day, you want to be around Finn.
I love that. And yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to God Sunday, hearing about all the exploits. And again, misdemeanors are okay. I think we're good with those. And if you want to pin him on him, like he's still under 18, we'll sort that out later. It's not a big deal.
See, unfortunately, as structured as I am, that's the only thing where he may not enjoy me being his uncle. If
Yeah.
I'm in charge, we're staying safe. So it's that fun balance. And I'll tell him what my uncles have told me. If you ever get in trouble and you need someone to call and you're afraid to talk to your parents, call me. You're gonna be okay. We will eventually talk to your parents about it, but more importantly, what matters is that you do the right thing. So that's what I've always learned. Mistakes happen. It's how you answer them. It's how you show up to them. So yeah, but I forgot to explain the reasoning behind what's being cut. What's being cut is driving Finn around in the back seat, and that's because he has so many questions that I feel like I cannot provide enough answers. And whenever
Why?
we're driving,
Why?
yeah, exactly. So as I'm driving, I'm like, no, that's a really good question. I don't know if I can further explain that anymore.
Mm.
Or, I don't know how to get him what he needs or wants.
Yeah.
Once I provide my concise answer, I don't know how to further delve into why it is that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a joy. I found that he likes Jeeps, and that's why it's hard to cut this one, because he always says, oh, Daddy's Jeep, oh, Grambo's Jeep, oh, Tommy's Jeep. So yeah, it's any activity with that kid's going to be fun, but if I can't solve his problems, then it leaves me going, I probably should switch it up now.
Yeah, and even if you don't worry, even if you solve the problem, it's like, why? It's like, I solved it. What do you mean, why? Like, just be appreciative that I solved the problem. Just let it go. Yeah. The amount of times that I try to limit it, but I get to the point where it's just like, don't worry about it, or just cause. Because it'll be a why that is not necessary. Like, I explain it, and then he says, why? And then I explain it the other way, and then he says, why again? I'm like, because of the first explanation. What do you mean?
Yep.
I was like, we're not going to get into the loop where I explain it every time. Like, that's it.
Exactly.
And he's like, okay.
Well, I made the mistake of using the same phrase a few times. He wanted to it was either go in the backyard and play, and it was kind of muddy out, or we were I forget, like we were driving somewhere, and he's like, can we do that?" And I was like, maybe next time." And then he asked a similar question again,
Mm.
and I said, maybe next time. It was maybe 15 minutes apart, and he said, "Why do you say maybe next time a lot?" And I was like, "You got me. You got me." So,
Because not now.
yeah,
It's
yeah. But I don't
just,
have the heart to flat out say no.
oh, it's either he ignores it or disagrees with it, so it's okay. It's like, but why? It's like, who cares? It's still no. It doesn't matter. Oh,
Well, and
man.
sometimes and I mean this, if he asks to do something, I say, "Buddy, because my job is to keep you safe.
Yep.
If I keep you safe, you can get older, and then we can have more fun with whatever activities you want to do that I can help with. But
Mhm.
until then, we have to keep you safe, because that way, mommy and daddy will have a better time when they get home. Because if you're not safe, it creates trouble."
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. And past those three topics with flying colors, and I do have a bonus one. And this one is related to the movie posters that I know you've seen in our basement. So, of course, you've seen the 7 we have down there. What would be the 3 movie posters that you would want to have?
Oh,
That could be because you like the movies. That could be because you know what the poster looks like, and it would be a very cool aesthetic to it. So, what would
right,
be 3 that you'd want?
right. Harry Potter is my go-to series when it comes to movies.
Mm.
And, you know, the last one had no words on it
Yeah.
because everyone knew the plot. It just had the date. It said it all ends July whatever, 2000 whatever.
Mm.
And it just was stoic Harry Potter and, villainous Voldemort staring at each other. I get chills thinking about the intro.
Yeah.
They just had brilliant cinematography, wonderful edits. It's amazing that CGI from the movie 1 to movie 8.
Mm-hmm.
So that has to be top shelf first poster. Second poster. If this movie is on, I won't change the channel for at least a few commercial breaks. Wedding Crashers, because it has a lot. It has comedy. It has a little bit of the well, gonna call it what it is. It's a rom com, but it pulls on all the right heartstrings, makes you laugh, gives you a little bit of action. It has a stellar cast.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland does 2 things: crab cakes and football. Uh, you know, so that's probably number 2. And number 3, uh, this is tough because I want it to be a football movie, but there are too many wonderful football movies to choose from.
Yep.
I'll probably say, it's toss up between Rudy
Nice.
and Remember the Titans.
Very classic.
So yeah, I
Very,
will.
both very memorable. I feel like I know what those look like. Like I feel like when you see that as the poster, like that's what that movie is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, See, I'm probably going to go with Remember the Titans because I really appreciate the history and the significance of all of the plot
Mm-hmm.
and how it transcended local Virginia and
Yep.
how it made waves in a time when race was not something that was acknowledged the same way that it is today.
Mm-hmm.
It gave weight to the movement, to the progressive movement. So it was very, very well done. And one of my friends growing up, their grandfather was Coach Yost.
Really?
So that's another point that I find pretty cool, to know that enough of it is built on enough truth.
Yeah. Well, ironically that you say that too. A PE teacher that I had actually played against that team at one point, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So between the history and then again the way Disney ties it all together, and
Yep.
they make you move through the entire emotional spectrum, you can't beat it.
Yep.
There's a little bit of fire and passion, and then there's just they checked a lot of boxes for me.
Well, and speaking of fire and passion, the Washington Commanders. So a lot of both this season, whether it's Heineke wearing his gold chains and drinking Busch Light, uh, it's been an up and down season for sure. And that division has, out of nowhere, been the most like the top tier, most competitive one. I would argue in the NFL, at a minimum in the NFC.
Yep.
It's been so fun to watch. How do you feel about the team maybe making the playoffs, but more so maybe kind of just into the future, how they're kind of positioned?
This season, if Washington beats New York this weekend, they should make the playoffs.
Mm.
Our remaining schedule, the way it lines up, San Francisco, Cleveland, and Dallas after New York. So if we beat New York, we have the tiebreaker over New York.
Yep.
The 49ers now have Brock Purdy. We could easily find a way to make it an even match if we can get Brock Purdy, slowed down. If we can make them run the ball, which is scary because they can run it really well with McCaffrey.
Yep.
But if that's all they have, we have pretty stout front seven. Our defense is not afraid to tackle. We, in my opinion, have the best defensive line in the entire NFL, inside and out. Whether that's first string or our second string are still comparable. Without Chase Young, we're still holding teams to, yardage that's good. The points, we're always kept in the game, and we're learning to force turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
So we could easily beat 49ers if we can neutralize their offense, because as long as we keep it close, I believe in Heineke. He will have some plays every now and then that make you question, can this guy win us a Super Bowl? But he will have some plays where you're like, oh, he should be in the Pro Bowl no matter what.
Yep.
So if we can get Scary Terry involved and spread the wealth amongst our trio of wide receivers, get Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson the ball, get them running downhill, sky's the limit. Dallas might be having playoffs, clinched, and if they have nothing to play for, they might rest their starters.
Mm-hmm.
So we could beat Dallas and Cleveland. At least in terms of all the numbers, on paper, we should win with the numbers that you see. So I'm not saying we're going to go 4-0, but I think we'll at least go 2-2 to finish the season. I think we'll squeak in the playoffs. Hopefully, we'll get a rematch with the Vikings, because we should have won that game. But again, Heineke had one of those plays where you go, why'd you do that? So, but outlook in the short term, beyond the season, if we can patch up the offensive line, we are in the most competitive division. 4 teams could make the playoffs from the NFC East. That's the entire division. That has never happened. Granted, there were only 2 wild cards for many years, but that would be a feat among itself. And we're all above 500. That's crazy, because just a year or two ago, well, it was 2020, Washington made the playoffs at 7-9. Yep, yep. So, you know, the league is set up for parity. It's interesting. Um, it Washington's playing with heart. We have enough talent to fill in the gaps, and Ron Rivera. How can you not root for that man? You're familiar with Ron Rivera in Carolina.
He is our riverboat captain. He's made a name for himself again, whether that was back in Carolina or he's very much continued a lot of the same stuff in Washington. But I think there's some ownership questions, obviously, but we don't need to get into that. But I think he's done his best to kind of have the culture that I know he wants, and I think that was the whole reason why he was brought in there, was because I feel like he's a kind of guy where he's not the young OC from the McVay coaching tree or something. He's not the like really old, out of touch defensive coordinator kind of guy, like defensive minded guy. He's a little bit older, but I feel like he's a very good guy of bridging the gap in terms of the older and younger players. He connects with everybody, including his staff.
Yep.
Represents the team well. I mean, overall, he just seems like a very good, high character, smart guy.
Yep.
And I mean, in terms of the defense, obviously very solid, like you were saying about the defensive line, stout, and that's it. That's been without Chase Young, which has been incredible. And in terms of the offense, I mean, the weapons that they have, Curtis Samuel finally getting to be what he was about to be, like 2 or 3 years ago before the injuries and everything.
Yep.
Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, you got Scary Terry, Jahan Dotson. He's been hobbled a little bit, but I mean, whenever he's been fully healthy, he's looked very good.
Right.
I mean, the weapons they have, it's as good as it's been since the Randall L days, possibly. I mean, it's very good.
It is the best trio of wide receivers that Washington has had since Pierre Garcon, Deshaun Jackson, and Jamison Crowder, whenever we had Kirk Cousins coming
That's right.
to us.
Yeah.
When Antoine Randall L was here, it was
he Moss or no?
Yep. So it was Brandon Lloyd, Antoine Randall L, and Santana Moss. And those three were great. They didn't have the same offensive scheme, and they didn't have the same kind of quarterback that Washington has now. They had more of a pro style setup. It was Al Saunders' playbook, and it was very vanilla. It was a big playbook, but it was very to the point, and everything needed to go according to plan for it to work well. Scott Turner, his development is wonderful. So it's going to be fun to watch. I just hope it goes our way, and in Ron I trust. The organization, if they only had more of him, around the executive suite, the franchise would be in a lot better shape.
Yeah, no question. And I think you kind of touched on it, at least in terms of what you think may happen with this matchup this upcoming weekend. But I, of course, will be there at FedEx Field, and ideally not falling over any railings onto any quarterbacks. Cough, cough, Jalen Hurts. So what is your prediction on the game this upcoming Sunday night between the Giants and the Commanders?
I think it's going to be close. I'd like to think it does not end in a tie, because that's not fun for anyone.
Yep.
I think it's probably going to be tied up at halftime. Someone's going to turn the ball over. I'm hoping that it's going to be New York, and Washington's going to run away with it. So I would like to assume that the final score is 23-17, Washington. Unfortunately, I've seen this far too often, where Washington will suddenly just let me down. I'm hoping that's not this weekend.
Yeah, it's a division of football in the NFL. I know it doesn't necessarily matter where any team is at any point. It just seems parity again. It just seems to run rampant. Although this is interesting because they are truly neck and neck. same division. Again, they both have their holes, but they both have their strengths. Of course, the Giants with Dable, he is If he's not the coach of the year, I don't know who is. He has maximized talent more than any coach I've ever seen, considering what the expectations were coming into the season.
Yep.
So I'm very excited to watch that and to just freeze my ass off in that stadium. So jumping over to what your shirt's all about, what we've talked about a little bit so far. How has the process been being an uncle and a godfather? Have you enjoyed it? I know it sounds like you've enjoyed the happy Finn moments, and I guess in the totality, what's been your thought on that, on everything?
It is my favorite title that I've ever been given. Being around Finn, it's my grandfather used to say, if I knew how great grandkids were, I would have had them first. So, being the uncle makes me think, well, with Finn there, maybe I don't have to have kids myself because I can be there for him in whatever way he needs me and make sure that he's having fun, doing well. But when it comes down to it, I don't have to be the parent, so I don't have to deal with making sure that he has different kinds of structure. I do not have to reprimand. I just can make sure that I'm showing up and being present with him. So it has been a joy. We are only 4 years in, but I know for a fact that and in some ways I'm at a loss for words because I don't know how else to explain that it's just a great experience.
No, I think that's a very fair answer in terms of, I know they talk about the whole, whether it's the aunt or the uncle or the grandparents of getting that chance to be well, yeah, we'll hang out, we'll do whatever. It's and then all right, you take him back, you deal with this. It's but I think, you've been incredible in terms of getting to spend that time with him. And obviously, even if you're not here, but it's we're going to see Tommy this weekend or you're going to see him at this point, lights up. He knows, he hears that name, or say if you're talking on the phone with Marley or I,
yeah,
he can hear your voice and he knows who it is, which that kind of tells you if he knows that, you've kind of made that impact on his life of oh, I want to see him, or I know who that is, I know who that sounds like.
Yeah.
So it's just an incredible feeling, certainly, I'm sure, to get that time. And I know Marlon and I certainly appreciate it, and you've been a heck of a godfather, so thank you.
Thank you. He's easy to show up for. So,
well, I think you kind of touched on this in the Keep Trade Cut, but what are you most looking forward to with Finn as you get older? Would it be Godson Day?
Godson Day is definitely one of them. I think family, again, I have many quotes to follow my grandparents, but they'd say, family isn't everything, it's the only thing. So I just am excited to either show him traditions that our family has or build new ones with him, show him all of the family history in Rhode Island one day, get him up there. I let him know my aunt did it for me, and and my grandmother also did this for me. They helped me go to Italy. So I told Finn, I'm not sure if it's clicked yet, but I said, hey, buddy, whenever you graduate high school or college, we'll go on a trip. So be thinking about where you want to go. And he's thrown out Australia. So
That's really?
Yes. So that's on the radar. And, Marley has said before, do we get to come? And I said, if you, take care of your own ticket. She said, well, if you're taking care of his, we can do that. So, yeah.
I know he'll be 18, but he'll just sit in our lap. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that his answer, it's not even he's this young, so he just thinks grandma and grandpa's house. It's like, no, I want to go outside of the continental United States, far away from here. I want the most expensive trip that we can get outside of going to some very like small island that no one else can get to. Smart guy.
Yeah. But I'm here for it. You know,
Yep.
it's worth it. There's no present quite like traveling. It's an experience. You know, I appreciate all of the items that I have, but memories mean the world. So
Yeah.
that'll be cool.
Well, in your infinite wisdom as an uncle and as a godfather, what would you say is a great tip to bestow upon maybe soon-to-be or newly uncles and or godfathers?
I can talk a lot, but this one's pretty simple. Just show up. Just show up.
Yep.
If you're thinking of them, find a way to let them know you're thinking of them. If that's going through your sibling to tell them hi, do it. I found out that my nephew likes getting mail. So I could, begin sending postcards. You just have to listen to them, watch them, figure out their interest, and figure out how you can make them smile, because it won't take much. They just want to know that someone's paying attention to them, and whenever you show you care, sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen some of the videos of Finn going to the mailbox in his underwear and shark rain boots, and that's it. But I can assure you, whether he's half clothed or fully clothed, he definitely, it's something as simple as that, where it's like, no one sends mail anymore. But in his mind, that's not the thought. The thought is, wait, there's mail? And even if the mail doesn't have his name on it, he's just excited that there's something in the mailbox to grab, let alone if there's a postcard or something that's from someone he knows and he sees a sticker on it or he sees an animal. So it's so funny to see the little things like that. And I mean, all up on the side of the fridge, having postcards, having just so many things that whether it's like crafts he's done or just like little things like that, where it's like he appreciates all of it and he just loves to be able to walk by in the kitchen, just look at it, know maybe who sent it to him or if it's a craft, who he made it for. Yep. So it's so funny to see those little things and just kind of the appreciation he has for all that. So
Exactly.
Definitely good tip. I'd really appreciate that. And godfathers, uncles, write that down. So Tommy, this has been a blasty blast. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. And for the finale here, so this would be the guest gets the final word. So this can be a shout out. This could be another quote. You've got good ones, but I know you have one more probably. Or this is a recent one, and you're not a mean-hearted person, so you wouldn't do this, but an insult if you want to throw one anywhere. So what do you got?
I'm pretty good with self-deprecating humor, but I'll spare the audience. Fortunately, I didn't stutter much so far, so that's good. I don't have to insult myself there. I once received a postcard from a family member. This was the quote. "The weather is here. Wish you were beautiful. No, really. Wish you were here. Love, Grandma D." So that's my final word. Just, whoever you're thinking of that you haven't reached out to, send them a GIF, send them a text. By the way, it's pronounced GIF, not GIF. Send them something. Just, it's the holidays. It's definitely time to let people know who you care about. Remind them that they're important to you.
Tommy, I think that's sage advice, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much, Chu. It's an honor to also be your brother-in-law.
Hey, love you, Bill.
Bill.